Hi everybody, give me a second. Whoa, what am I saying? Hello, let me play some music.
World virus, yes, there are five. Sold them to the merchant ships. Minutes of a day to guide from the bottomless pit. But my aim was made strong by the hand of the Almighty. We forward in this generation triumphantly. Won't you help the same? This source of freedom is all I ever had. Redemption song, redemption song. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. Now back to ourselves can free our mind. I've no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. Our love shall kill our prophets while we stand aside and look.
I want to welcome everybody to the Saturday Soup. I'm Empress Golding, and I try to come live every Saturday on Instagram to hear your views and to hear what's cooking in your pot. What's cooking? What's boiling? Yes, I see some of the comments coming through, and some people are saying, can I hear your thoughts on the Supreme Court decision? Yes. Happy Emancipation Day. Emancipated ourselves. People, time to stand up together, says Sadiq Hailet. I hear you. It's time for emancipation. We're going to have that conversation. What does emancipation mean to you? Please request to come in live and share your views. It's a beautiful day today. It's August 1. We are all here. We are alive. Thank you. We're alive. Are we emancipated? Another question. To have the court ruling about the beautiful young princess who was asked to cut her locks to attend school and performing immaculately. We're going to have that conversation as well. I plan to invite Roger Malcolm from Jamaicans for Justice, who first raised the alarm about this case, to come in and just help us to understand the law, the Constitution, and what we need to do as people to advocate for non-discriminatory decisions in the classroom and in education, or also to help us to understand how we can fight this, how we can bring light, conversation, and advocacy to make sure that when you have an African identity, you're never denied, or can I just say, it never reaches where it is, because the international press is carrying something on the eve of emancipation, and I'm very concerned, and I know you are too. What's going on in the soup? We need to know what's going on in your life. I want to thank everybody for joining today. What a day it's been. So many conversations on reparation, emancipation, black identity, and the way forward. We need to talk about it, but I have to run it like this.
World virus, yes, there are five. Sold them to the merchant ships.
What a terrible history.
Minutes of a day to guide from the bottomless pit. But my aim was made strong by the hand of the Almighty. We forward in this generation triumphantly. Won't you help the same? This source of freedom is all I ever had. from mental slavery. Now back to ourselves can free our mind. I've no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. Our love shall kill our prophets while we stand aside and look. Some say it's just a part of it. We've got to fulfill the book. Won't you ever say these songs of freedom is all I ever am? Redemption song.
All right, let's deal with your comments. Hello, Never One says, hey, hope you will be talking about that Supreme Court thing. Pure madness. I will bring it up in the soup tonight, and we will have somebody that can guide us on how we should approach it, how we should review the situation, how we should approach the situation as it relates to advocacy. Yes, we have to. We can't come in on Saturday Night Soup and not address that. Let me read your comments. Again, good night to everyone joining us. I'm Empress Golding. Happy to be here. Happy emancipation. What does emancipation mean to me? Wow. Wow. It means a black identity. It means reparation. That's what we need to talk about. It means a new kind of advocacy, a new world in light of everything that we are seeing across the globe. Now is the time to truly fight for our emancipation, and we can discuss that on many levels. Blessings along the way coming from the Cocoa Foundation. Hello to the Cocoa Foundation. We still have cocoa business going on in Jamaica. That is fabulous. I love it. I love it. I love it. All right, so I'm going to go to a post that I put on my Instagram earlier about ackee and saltfish, our national dish, while we get ready for some of our guests to join us. So in the soup tonight, I want to talk about ackee and saltfish. Let's see some of your comments. So why is ackee and saltfish our national dish? Let me see what you all have to say while I play some music. Tell me, why is ackee and saltfish? Why is it our national dish?
Minutes of a day to cry from the bottomless pit, but my head is strong. By the end of the Almighty, we forward in this generation triumphantly. Won't you have the same? These songs of
I hear you, Spicy Diva. Audrey, the school does not serve JA, can be closed. We need to address the principal of Kensington Primary. I'm going to address all of that. Just give me a second. I am going to address all of that. Many schools have this policy, by the way, that if you have dreadlocks, you cannot attend the school and that you must cut your hair. I've seen it in different institutions in history, and we're going to have that conversation. Don't worry, we're going to go there. I'm just waiting on some of my friends and experts and legal experts to join me to have that conversation. In the meantime, I want to read a press release regarding the situation which we're going to discuss, that is on the front page of every Instagram and social media page about Jamaican school banning a young girl because she had dreadlocks and asking her to cut her hair at 5 years old. It's reached the Washington Post and international media, which I have a concern about. When things reach international media, we have to address it as a country. The Washington Post put out an article stating that Kingston, Jamaica's High Court ruled Friday that a school was within its rights to demand that a girl cut her dreadlocks to attend classes, a surprise decision that touched on issues of identity and one of the most recognizable symbols of the island's Rastafarian culture. Now, you all know I've worn locks for a decade, and boy, I don't want to go there because I'm waiting on my guests to come in so we can address the principle, address what is happening It's a sad situation. I don't know what the court ruling says on paper because I haven't read it, but people are upset. We're baffled as to how this can reach us in this time, which is an indicative moment of our colonized state. It is showing us that we still have to fight for a Black identity within a Black country. I want to read a press release from the Prime Minister that just came out today of Jamaica. Our children must not be discriminated against or deprived of their right to an education on the basis of their hairstyle. Prime Minister Andrew Holness. Prime Minister Andrew Holness has noted with concern the developments surrounding the case of a 7-year-old Jamaican child who was barred from attending school because of the style of her hair. While we await the written judgment, which is what everybody is warning us to wait for, while we await the written judgment to determine the basis of the ruling issued by our Supreme Court, which by media reports have suggested that the child's constitutional rights were not breached, this government does not believe that there should be any law which could be interpreted to deny access to a citizen merely on the basis of their hairstyle. We have, as a rights-sensitive government, always maintained that our children, that our children must not be discriminated against nor deprived of their right to an education because of socio-economic issues, such inability to afford school fees, or socio-cultural issues, such as their hairstyle. Okay, pause there. Socio-cultural issues, okay. Prime Minister Holness said. He notes that the Education Ministry has asserted over the years that schools' grooming rules must be rights-based, and that no student is to be prevented from admission or attendance at a public educational institution by reason of non-conformity with a school rule prohibiting a particular hairstyle in circumstances where the wearing of that hairstyle by the student is based on religious or health reasons. The Prime Minister says, however, in the present context, this government believes it is time to review and amend the Education Act to reflect a modern and culturally inclusive position that protects our children from being barred from any educational institution on the basis of wearing locks as an ordinary hairstyle, irrespective of religious reasons. That press release came out today while we celebrate Emancipation Day. Your thoughts, send your message. I'm listening.
Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. Now back to ourselves can free our mind. I've no fear for atomic energy, cause none of them can stop the time. Our love shall kill our prophets while we stand aside and look. Some say it's just a part of it. We got to fulfill the goal. Won't you dare to stand? Jesus calls our freedom. It's all I ever had.
Redemption! Alrighty, I'm so happy to have Roger Malcolm of the Jamaican for Justice Advocacy Group joining us here tonight to help us to understand what advocacy means, what this current situation of this young girl going to school and having to reach an international press platform about why she was denied justice at school, the injunction that was made, Roger Malcolm of Jamaicans for Justice Advocacy Group. How are you?
I'm all right, doing well.
Good to see you. Good to hear you. Roger, bring some light for us who don't understand constitutional law, who don't understand law, who don't understand what is happening right now. What is the genesis of the story of the young girl who went to school at Kensington Primary and was told to cut her hair to attend class? Please help us understand.
Sure. So in 2019, the case came to public light actually via an article in the Star, and Jamaican Justice responded by offering just legal advice to the family. Uh, the offer of legal advice turned into an offer of legal representation through our Redress and Legal Services Unit. And in 2019, we filed a claim in the Supreme Court and sought an injunction against any potential barring of the girl from school because it was close to the start of the school year. So we secured that injunction and initiated the case before the Supreme Court, and that allowed the girl to go through classes this year. And the court said that they would hear the full case in 2020. Since we got the girl in school, the attorney that was working at the case at JFJ moved into his private practice and the case went with him. And so Jamaican Justice did not argue the final case before the court. We initiated the claim and built out what the grounds were originally for the claim. And so at the time when we filed it, I can express what were the constitutional rights concerns. So at the time, Jamaican Justice was interested in having the court determine if the rule or the practice at Kensington and other such practices across Jamaica that would have the intention or the effect of limiting access to education or threatening denial of access to education because someone were to wear locks, if those were constitutional, given several constitutional rights that children and families have. For example, children have a constitutional right to publicly funded up to primary education. So if any rule, either at this school or another school, would limit a child's access to education, we would argue that it was unconstitutional. Children's right to expression, to freedom from discrimination on basis of even culture and that kind of stuff. And so these are all constitutional rights that we have, and the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. And so we read all other laws and all other practices in that context. That being said, I don't know what the final argument ended up being outside of getting the injunction, which Jamaican Justice did at the time. However, certainly, in the absence of a written judgment, all that we're aware of from what happened in court, and we received a few reports from what happened in court, was that the judges just simply advised that they were ruling against the girl and admitted and accepted to providing a written judgment. And that written judgment will really tell us if they determined what they determined. Maybe it could have strictly been technical or procedural. We're not really sure because we don't have the written judgment. And yesterday was a final day of the court term. And so I think at this stage, what we have is really the product, however, of a gap in law. And so our Education Act and Education Regulations, and I just sent you our statement. I'm happy the Prime Minister said that because exactly what we were asking for. You can read it later. But one of the things that we have in Jamaica is our 1965 Education Act and 1980 Education Regulations are really out of date. And what they do is that they don't provide any protections in law or regulation for children from arbitrary or unjust rules. And they have the effect of giving over to schools the total freedom to create school rules. So while you hear the Prime Minister's statement say that school rules should be rights-based, that has no teeth in law, and we have to cut through the language to go to the substance. Similarly, you remember in his 2017 budget presentation, he had committed to reforming the Education Act, and well, it hasn't occurred. And so there have been multiple commitments to reform the Education Act. We have met with the Minister of Education just last year about this particular issue, and it will only take action, not more press statements to get it done. Like we've been saturated with commitments at the highest level now to reform it. We don't really care. We only care about the action. And so what would that reform look like? It does not look like having the government set school rules for every school.
What it looks like is putting in place a framework for how school rules will operate in law. So that, for example, school rules can't be discriminatory. They can't deny access based on non-education-based factors. They can't ban an entire hairstyle. Those are the things that we would want to see in a reformed education regulation, so that schools can go out and make all the rules they want to, but they can't cross those minimum standards. And that's a simply modern approach to regulating schools, as simply allowing schools to have their freedom to pass laws and so to pass rules, but those rules can't be totally arbitrary. And what you have right now in Jamaica is a wild variation of school. You can go to one school and wear an afro, another school you can't wear an afro. It's always okay to cream your hair, though. It's never a problem to process your hair. It's always a problem as to how it grows naturally. But that's a different issue for us to take up.
Well, but that's an issue which we will have to discuss in another scoop. How colonized are we? And it's a conversation we must have as we celebrate emancipation and emancipation of our laws, emancipation of our constitution, emancipation of our policies at all levels, education, institutions, corporate. But let me ask you something. If we are to, as the public viewing right now, to join an advocacy training campaign that says that you can no longer say in your school policy that a child can be banned because of their hairstyle, afro or dreadlock, what do we as the people need to do? I'm just, what do I do to help to change this so-called policy or law that doesn't allow a school to be able to say that, so we don't reach here again? Roger, what does that kind of advocacy look like for us?
Sure. So I can see it at 3 levels. One, in your own little corners, making noise, however you make noise. If it's writing an article, if it's reaching out to us for factual information, so you can write that article. If it's on social media, make noise. Making noise works. It doesn't always work, but sometimes it really does work. And I think this issue has struck a nerve. The second way you can join other advocacy. So in the coming week, we are going to be providing opportunities for persons, and it doesn't mean you have to agree with JFJ on every other issue. You can just choose this one issue. And to launch, what we're going to launch is either some type of open submission from the public where everybody can input the sign, just like what we did for the sexual harassment bill that got so many people changing that crazy 1-year limit, or probably some type of open letter that specifies the specific reforms that the public can sign for a particular period of time. We will ask that persons endorse that and share it widely, so that we can get the change that we want. The third would be to, in other organizations, group together and do it on your own. You don't have to do it with us. But target maybe your MP or a decision maker. So everybody in Jamaica knows somebody of influence because our society is so classist, that you have to have, everybody has a little people that they know that has influence. But I myself have gotten so many calls from politicians or other persons who want to figure out how to think about the issue. Many times it's actually supporting people in power to think about the issue correctly. So you can do that as well. I would say also that we've gotten a commitment finally, a recycled commitment from the Prime Minister to reform the education regulations. Everybody should set a timer in their calendar for a period of time that you're not okay with this not happening, and let it remind you. So in 2 months' time, you can tweet and say, hey, what happened to this? So it doesn't become a 9-day one. That JJ, we have to constantly keep track of promises. And this is one that we'll be here next Emancipation Day if nobody doesn't actually put the fire to the politicians and say, hey, you made this promise. When other people make promises and don't keep them, they're called lies. When politicians don't do that, it's just that we find another term for it. It's very strange to me. But this is a recycled commitment. So I'm happy it has come up again. It's exactly what we would need. But it needs to actually be honored. Otherwise, it's just getting ahead of the media cycle and not actual leadership. And I'm not really afraid to say that directly.
And I'm glad you called it a recycled commitment, because sometimes these commitments are made and we, the people, do not read, we do not listen, and we don't hold our elected officials accountable. With this young girl and the written judgment of the court that we will see, people are upset, Roger. I don't know if you've had a chance to read some of the comments, and I'm very careful on how I comment because I'm not really clear on the law, the judgment. What is it saying that the school was right to say that she should have cut her hair because of her hygiene issues? Are you trying to tell me that the school made a judgment without fact? I don't know because I haven't read the case. That because you have locks, because we have a terrible history of discriminatory thoughts on Black identity and dreadlocks, and I've had locks and my family have locks and all kind of things. Are we saying that the school said? I just want to know what the school said, that you should cut your hair to come to our school because dreadlocks carries lice? Is that what they said?
Sure. So in 2019, one of the positions advanced by the school, when we were very, very involved at the injunction stage, as to why they had this rule, included hygiene reasons, and references were made to lice, and that it's so the argument is to say it's not discrimination, it's health, and that argument had come. I'm not sure to what extent it made a major part of their submissions as a matter of law, but that justification had been advanced, and what it really shows is, it just doesn't just show ignorance. It shows ignorance, but many of these school rules that the rules are rules, people who are like, but it's a rule, who get upset about, it's normally just prejudice dressed up in formal language that makes itself into a handbook. And, as our press release says, Marcus Garvey had it right, none but ourselves can free our minds. And it really is a matter of the mind. People project their prejudice, and education is one of those sectors that really holds on to a lot of the colonial type education systems that really were about policing and civilizing Black people after emancipation. And if you look on the history of our civilizing, in quotes, of course, if you look on the history of our education system, it's a lot of those overtones. So it's not surprising that these holdovers are the way they are, and how they are focused principally on certain forms of hair, not just any hair. So it's never a problem, again, to chemically process your hair. No judgment if people do that, but it's never a problem to chemically process your hair in school. No school would ever prohibit that, but they would prohibit any natural. Many schools, some schools don't. They would prohibit afros, or they prohibit dreadlocks, even if they're neat and tidy. And they don't do the same for Caucasian or Indian students oftentimes. Some schools don't care. Yeah, some schools don't care. Some schools say, this is crap. We're going to let our students be however they, once they are generally reasonably attired. Other schools take a hard and fast position of banning a whole hairstyle. This variation that you could, that you could hop around schools and have different protections of your rights, is exactly what the law reform is intended to fix. So we don't have this wild variation.
So let me ask you, Roger, when it comes to law and setting precedents, or just in the courtroom, let me just state that Garvey did argue in his time that the educational system was created by white men for white men. I just want to put that there for why is it not created for us, and how do we recreate the educational system? I just want to put that out there in this time of emancipation. But let me ask you, when you talk about laws and policies and opening floodgates for anything, our institutions, where do you draw certain lines? And this is where I think I have a concern, and I believe that anybody with Afro hair, Natty Gusso, should go to school and not be discriminated against. And if the white kid and the Indian kid can have hair of a certain length, then we can too. But my question is, uniformity. Do we reach a point where we say, depending on how the law is written or the policy is written, can a school say, if you wear a tattoo and a nose ring at 16, because they're looking at the army and the police force and different institutions, they want to have some uniformity. Where do we say you, as an institution, you can then say, no, you can't dress like this, or there has to be a uniformity to attend this institution? Your pants must be tucked in. My constitutional right is I want to wear my shirt out. How far do we go?
Sure. So and so again, we go to something that fulfills a reasonable purpose, right? So for example, if a school is a uniform and it's a white shirt with a crest and a blue pants, that you want to design the crest in red because you're an artist doesn't really allow you to be identified as a member of that school, for example. So you could reasonably say you can't modify the school uniform, right? That would serve a proper purpose of identifying the student, of generally having a sense of uniformity without rigidity. Similarly, you probably could say that if the school has a shirt tucked in, then they probably would win to have that enforced as something that should be tucked in because it achieves a general purpose that is rational. Banning an entire type of hairstyle doesn't actually fulfill any purpose other than, control and prejudice. And so
or just the to me, and I'm going to state this now publicly, that I believe that a lot of us are so colonized that we can't even see past it. We don't even understand where our policies and rules and cultural ideas come from, that we are so programmed and sick and injected with the poison of colonization that we need a new injection. And I'm happy that you are here as the executive director of Jamaicans for Justice to really just talk about law reform, and to look at and your injection and your drive for the changing the unjust school rules tonight. Now, let's look at emancipation and your opinion on what we are seeing in 2020 with the whole movement, George Floyd and others that has sparked such advocacy of reparation. Your view on reparation and your view of where we are going as a country and reparations. Roger.
Oh, okay. I definitely didn't have any prepared thoughts on that.
Don't worry, just as simple as it may be, friend to friend.
My view on reparations is, I think that the difference between reparations and aid, for example, or begging, is that reparations are about justice. And so I prefer to think about it as reparatory justice.
Amen.
And that's really about righting a wrong. Now, those reparations may come in different forms. They may come in the form of cash, or they may come in the form of fixing structural things that leave us where we are. So, for example, Jamaica had a thriving biodiverse ecosystem. People came to this country and said, oh, the people in England want coffee and bananas and sugar. So let's destroy their ecosystem and plant acres and acres of the same thing that just leave them, that deplete their soil and destroy it. And let's lock them into trade relationships where all they really need to know how to do is to produce export crops. So those trade relationships, right, are structures that were created as a result of colonialism and slavery. It is a form of reparatory justice, for example, for me to get concessions into your market now, for example. It's a form of reparatory justice for me to be able to restructure my economic relations on preferential terms because I never designed those economic relations to begin with. They were thrown upon me, and then after my independence, we said, oh, survive Jamaica. And so I think reparatory justice is more than just money, cash in hand. It is about repairing. That's why it's reparatory, reparations, repair. It's about repairing the things that happened. And for an extremely wealthy country, they can always throw cash anywhere and keep the system. And so I'm very careful to talk about money as a component of reparatory justice, the reparations that people talk about in quantum terms. But I would much prefer a more dynamic vision of what reparatory justice looks like. It doesn't look like aid projects, for example, that exchange getting money from the US and allowing their ship persons to take our fishermen to their countries and try them, and in the shipwright agreement. That's not really actual equal exchange. It's like giving out money and saying, and do our bidding elsewhere. And so it's not on equal terms. So that's my answer to reparations, Brad. And I'm happy that the discussion is happening again.
I am happy too. And I would ask our viewers to look at the CARICOM reparations 10-point plan. And let me tell you something, Roger. We have to control the narrative. Because let me tell you something. People are trying to control the narrative who are not Black, of Negro descent, of African descent, who want to control the narrative and tell us where they want to spend their reparatory justice, whatever you call it, distribution of whatever. But we have a plan, and we as a people have to design our advocacy agenda to say this is what we need to take our people from here to here. I hope you can see me, from here to here.
Yes, I can.
And
I also think it involves not doing double speak. And so we can't in one breath say we need independent reparatory justice and then sell all our land to foreign tourism companies and lock our people out. Like, we can't do that shit. I mean, we can't. We just can't do that. It's not. It doesn't actually support the vision that we are talking about of a sustainable Jamaica for us.
yeah.
Like, just look at some of our prime beach and look at the environmental destruction that companies do. That we're even having a debate about the cockpit country because some foreign company got a lease and now we owe them our backside. Like that, those things are just contradictory fundamentally.
But does it go just okay? So Roger, I'm a young person, for example, not me, I'm getting old, but you know, for the young people that are watching and who we are responsible to do the work for, do they not see it like, what's the plan? What's the vision? Like, we don't have a legacy plan. We don't have a 40-year plan in our minds, in our homes as a family. Maybe, I'm not sure if the government has it or the nation has it, but we really don't have that, you know, future plan that in 60 years, all our children, what are we working for? Are we just surviving?
Yeah, I mean, Vision 2030 is a thing. However, we are anybody who's inside that system knows that we are pretty much behind on almost every major cluster of indicators of Vision 2030. Because it's just like this whole statement that came out, you know. I mean, I've been in this work for a bit, so I'm very cynical at times, but anybody can really just say anything and put it on paper, you know. You can put anything down. It's about the work to actually restructure things. And you know, here's the hint that I would give. A lot of the work that needs to happen also involves dismantling some of the systems that give those in power their power. Full stop.
Well, I'm ready to dismantle, and I'm ready to fight for certain things. And I think for the 87 of us now, and those who will come in and out, and I mean, we'll probably get about 2,000, 3,000 after viewing this video, and plus, I want us to work out how we're going to fight. And I think it's important, Roger, that we point people to the advocacy platforms where it's already organized. You understand? It's all good to have, we have to educate the people. And we have to go to the masses to educate, to say, this is what you need to do. I'm all about Vision 2030. I underscore my rescue says Vision 2030 is a fancy distraction. I don't know if it's a distraction or a good goal, but we have to be responsible to play our part in the goal. A place to live, how you go, Roger, live, work, raise families.
And do business.
And do business. Come on, why not? I mean,
yeah,
the thing is,
I think we don't have consensus on many. And when I say values, I don't just mean like good things. We don't have consensus on many of our values. So, for example, another group of persons who are not on this chat, who don't follow an Afrocentric lady with locks, are also saying good. About this dreadlocks thing. They believe that we should be able to ban the ban. So we don't have consensus on some core things like if kids have a right to education. That's just not secondary to the personal preferences of a school administrator, if it's a right. But and so we don't have consensus on many of these things. And so when we say about building a Jamaica for all, for example, that the vision of that means very different rural and urban. Just think about how Jamaica is Kingston half the time when it comes to development, even access to education. I think we need to build a consensus vision of what a just and equitable Jamaica for everyone looks like. I think that we really and truly don't have that, even though some people think this is controversial. Well, but Jamaica, where half the country is okay just locking up people without charging them on the state of emergencies because they're afraid of crime. Now, they shouldn't be afraid of crime, but they don't view the common humanity in a person oftentimes. If I can get even more controversial for the era that JFJ works in, we defend anybody, including people who people hate. You have people who would say, "Yeah, I'm for human rights, but kill people if people think that they're gay." And that's not a Jamaica for everybody to grow old in. And so I will defend, and Jamaican Constitution and the organization will defend the rights of this girl to have locks, the rights of a child who is in need of care and protection, and the rights of somebody who the society hates, because that's not justice. Justice is a vision that says when there's something wrong that's done, it needs to be repaired, and you cannot, from your position, and everybody is privileged in some way. I am privileged as a man, right? So I just can't go into some discussions, for example.
Hold on, I'm glad you said that. Say it again, my brother. Let me turn on the fan and cool down. Let me hear you say it like 10 times, because I've been trying to tell these men how privileged they are, Roger. Let me hear you say it again. Say it again, please.
Now it doesn't feel natural, but I'm a man, and therefore my privilege doesn't allow me to see certain things, and so I can't choose which pieces of justice I care about from where I sit. If we have consensus that we want justice, everybody wants equal rights and justice, you see how quickly that term equal goes away, because it's not a version of, it's not a group that you particularly like, or you can see that perspective. And so for me, one of the reasons why we have this contestation is, for example, a bunch of uptown people planning for the poor. I never and then telling them what they need, what kind of housing they're supposed to get, where them roads are going to be, what type of development they need, and then wonder why we have a bunch of informal settlements, and why people thief light, and why we have high amounts of crime, because we have so much inequality, for example. And then when, anyway, we're going to talk about corruption. The bottom line is this, and these are not unique problems for Jamaica at all.
Yeah.
There are problems that we have everywhere around the world, where you have issues of power. This is what societies grapple with everywhere, how to make the societies more equitable and humane and just. And so for us to tackle these issues, we also have the added baggage of being a post-colonial society. And we see it pop up in this thing like the dreadlocks case. We see it pop up in even just how our police force operates, because independent Jamaica never got a police force. Our police force was formed after the Morambe Rebellion to prevent black people at the time from rising up. They don't want to do that right now, but we've never designed a security system like for a just and equitable Jamaica. And so we have a lot of nation building left to do. Little things like what we want to do now with Education Act, which is don't allow people to ban your children from going to school because of more locks. That's nation building. And so we have an unfinished project here called Jamaican Society that we have to work on. I'm in this chat with you now, and I have a fancy title as executive director. But if someone sees me on the road with my hair the way it is, or where I'm barefoot half the time, I had the profile and locked up. Oftentimes, I've experienced that. I've literally experienced police not being able to recognize me and do them things.
Let me just go there for a minute, Roger. You're a lawyer.
I'm actually not a lawyer.
What is your profession as an executive director? Let me not ask you that. Let me not ask you that. You're the executive director for Jamaicans for Justice, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you are like exemplary. You're just like at the top of this advocacy group, and you have your African hair, and you go around your rags and thing, what we call it, your rags and thing, your nice gear, which I've seen some of the very richest people in California in barefoot, slippers, and shorts and shirt, and long hair and comb, and they're the richest people walking through Hollywood. I've seen it and witnessed it because I have lived in Hollywood. And I'm saying, you feel that you would be targeted because of that look as a highly educated man leading one of the great.
Until I open my mouth, when you are able to actually change the profile a little bit, you actually get access to a little bit more experiences. So I'm not at any real risk, because I know I'm largely a privileged person. I run an organization that hires lawyers. I mean, I'm not in deep fear, for example, of interacting with the police in the way that many people are. But until that recognition is there, I mean, the other day I was arrested for videotape. Yeah, I'm not making it up. The other day I was arrested because I fit the profile, and then somebody told me I look like somebody who committed a murder and will lock me up. And then I got released on the roadside eventually. I mean, because after I cut my hair,
Hold on, pull up that. No, pull up that. Emancipate yourself. Let me run at you. No, stop. Let me breathe.
so,
So hold on. No, wait, Roger. Before my computer dies.
like,
My computer died. Let's talk. You were what?
yeah, I mean, I was, the whole arrest thing. It happens to people. I mean, and strangely enough, I'm not the first person that lived there to be arrested and trumped up rubbish. And so, my team has been saying what you're going to do about it. And then that strange way, I want to do like restorative justice or like mediation. I just think I think the guy is just like dead inside. I mean, and this is what happens with oftentimes with police abuse. It's I don't think many people go into the police force like saying I want to abuse people.
Right.
They go into a culture that predisposes them to those situations. We also have a high crime situation. We don't have the structures in place and the systems in the police force that support those things to the degree that they need to. And last year I spent a number of months training police at the police college, and it was really illuminating for me to also show how much work we have left to do. We give this exercise, we have this activity after we teach them about human rights, because you have to start with their rights, or any group, not just the police. You start with the person's rights. So they have to tell them what are the rights that they have and get their understanding. Because if you start with somebody else's rights, it sounds like you're selling them something. And so we started with discussing their rights, and they give their rights. And their rights normally, the first right they come up with about the right to rest. Something that I don't really think about it, but it's a right that exists in international law, right to rest and to leisure, and to limited working hours. You're getting a hint of the things that matter to them, right? And the issues that they face, good pay, and these are all rights that they have. So we started that in the building, and we add some other rights. The rights that people may not think about that much: liberty, protection from search, life, them kind of things. Maybe you get to the women's rights, children's rights, but it's always good to see what the people care about whenever as if you're a human rights trainer. And then so we give them an activity to come up with their country and to give their people just 5 rights. So we limit it to 5 rights and make a demonstration that you can't limit rights later down. But we just give them this limit. And so they get into the whole student mode now, they form them groups and name them country. And then they come up. And I can tell you without fault, in one group it was 2 of them, but each cohort, and we did 3 cohorts, had a right about executing or extraditing gay people. And then they had another right about to smoke or executing. Executing was a right that they wanted. One right that we got was a right to a purge, and there was no law, and people could just do what they wanted and kill people to solve their disputes. And then the other right was a right to be able to smoke marijuana at will, which I fully support, but it just wouldn't be something I would choose as my top 5 rights. And so it reflected to me, this is like day 2 of a training. This is their first exposure to human rights. So I can't knock them for that. Them coming with their beliefs, and you create an environment where people feel safe to say things, even if them know it's controversial, because we're working on it. But it reflects to me the baseline thinking of like a third of the public service in the police force here, and how much work we have to do if we want law enforcement to start from a human rights perspective. But just how much work we have to do on this idea of consensus, that this could be like how people understand or rights in relation to each other. And I was a little bit disappointed that this was also coming from my police recruits, because I don't expect the right to hurt other people to be one of the rights that you would choose. And so it really took the whole team aback, because again, we created a fun environment, so they felt like they could even make it as a joke. But that came up. It really had to take stock of things and think about how we're going to approach these trainings, because it was no longer about just giving content. It became more about changing attitudes. And I choose the second time this issue of LGBT people has come up with this conversation because they're like the punching bag for many discussions about human rights. But when you think about that punching bag, it actually shows us where we have divisions that we can't, just like how the school person can't look on this girl with your locks and say, I don't like locks, but you can come learn. Many people can't look on somebody who they can't understand why they want to live them life that way and say, you just deserve to exist. And though, I don't have to agree with you, but we can occupy the same public space, the civilized set of people. And that's really all that people want, to exist in a civilized space.
Allow me to exist being who I am. And then it boils back to a bigger thing though, which I battle with, I'm a mother of two and I have to govern my home. So I have cultural laws in my house, manners laws in my house. You're not for do X and not for do Y because so I have a joke though, Roger. My friends always tell me, are you come to about talk of you? That's why you pick them a talk back. So meaning
yes.
As much as I wish that my children would be quiet about certain things and hush them out, like Jamaicans would say, you talk too much. Listen, you're not a manners. Hey boy, me a mother. You understand? These are adults. I created this whole platform called, have a voice. And the voice gets very rude sometimes in my house. However, as a country, rights and culture, it is so complicated, Roger. I feel that during this emancipation moment, we are so confused about who we are. And I've always asked a group of young men, what is your man code? And we come from civilizations that have a man code, right? So maybe it's not a modern day thing. We don't know it as Jamaicans, but...
Sorry, there's just a roach. And I don't really play around with the roaches.
Kill the roach, Roger. Kill the roach.
Yeah, I try not to do the killing thing. I really am not. So I'm just trying to have it not be in my space,
Oh my,
just
kill it,
over
kill
there.
it. Kill the roach. Done him.
Go away. Go away. Don't come closer. Just go. All right.
I know. Listen, today I said to my husband, yo, man,
It's coming back.
and murder the tour at them. He's like, yo, I'm telling you, shut that door at night. Shut that window. I'm like, yes, I will. And then I remember the two roaches murdered, the two rats he murdered one night. So I get it. People are saying,
I'm moving. I'm going to accommodate the roach. Yeah, I'm just not. I can't. I don't want to do that. Right now.
I want to go and get my laptop charger. So while you kill the roach, right? I want everybody to stay online. I'm going to go and get my charger for my laptop. I want you. Are you able to see the comments? Because there's some people you may need to respond to. This person says, things such as, and these comments are broad, but I want to zone into the how, such as ecstasy_green says, I want to start from the belly, going into these schools and teach these kids who they really are. I mean, who are they? We don't know who they are, or do we? Or do we now need to have, as I said, before we even go to that comment, I have apps and I've created it for different groups. What's your girl code? What's your man code? I have one. And going back in history and in culture, there was a girl role and there was a boy role, and it had rules and regulations. You were the hunter of this. You had a certain thing that you did culturally. And I'm not sure, Roger, when we talk about human rights and global classification of how we should be, if it's just all left up in the air to say, oh, you be whatever and you be whatever, whoever you want to be. But are there cultural norms that we must conform to for harmony? I don't know, Roger. I'm confused.
I think we should have space for that answer to develop. I think I think there just needs to be space for that to exist. So, in one culture, they may have certain ways of understanding human rights, including even here in Jamaica, that are different from a different culture. I think this debate exists a lot in human rights between what is by virtue of my humanity, regardless of the culture I'm in, and what is part of my role as part of a society. And I honestly think societies just have to answer those questions for themselves because they're not easy questions to answer, quite frankly. I also think what we get is contestations of human rights dressed up as culture. So it's one thing to say, in this culture, we respect women greatly, and there are healers, there are teachers, there are nurturers, and that's the general role that they go into for hypothetically in a gender specific culture. However, if that culture were to say, and you are prohibited from voting because that is a man's job, you see where that line gets crossed. One is entitlements that are taken away by virtue of your attributes. So, for example, up until suffrage, women couldn't vote, many women couldn't even own land. That's why only women's names are changed when they get married, because they move from ownership of their father to their husband. That people don't view it that way anymore, but that's where the name change comes from. We only have Miss and Mrs. for women because their title indicated their status. I'm always Mr. I don't have to marry to change that. And so what you have is oftentimes a justification of deprivations, normally just by people who have power. It's never normally comes from the people who are affected. It's those who are unaffected who say you deserve it because of our culture. So you can have, for example, cultural norms where gender roles are specified, but are they equally valued? So I love tribal, some certain quote unquote indigenous or tribal cultures where the healers and the women healers and the teachers are fed by the whole village and their word is respected and they are held up for their role. But in another country, being a woman who's a teacher is like, that is a woman job. Nurse is a woman job. Doctors get paid more. Doctors are, you get where I'm going. And so I think that's the distinction to draw between what you call harmony and really just using culture as a way for those who are privileged to justify why others don't have that privilege. And you see it, I think women's voting rights are a big example of that. I think even racial justice is a big example of that. People oftentimes use everything from culture to the Bible to justify why society should have been ordered this way. And the people who make those arguments are oftentimes never the ones who are asking for inclusion. They're the ones who are preventing. So we have to check ourselves sometimes, because sometimes a group will say something, and let's say, for example, we take migrants, or we take the disabled, or we take LGBT people who are clamoring for things, and people say, Lord God, when I ask for too much, man, that's not our culture. Well, the people who are asking for it would disagree. They would say, no, I want to be part of this culture. And so when you find yourself, and I do it all the time, when you find yourself telling another group that that's not our culture, who is our, and are you actually affected? And oftentimes, if you are not affected, you feel quite comfortable on your veranda or in the letter to the editor talking about how this is not our culture and it's too much. But if you find yourself affected, i.e. like you're a black person in America, all of a sudden you don't accept, this is our culture when you are oppressed. And so I think that is the litmus test for me oftentimes to figure out when I am just actually buying into my privilege, which happens a lot, or when I can look at something and say, is this really a legitimate human rights claim? And even this dreadlock case is a good example. Look how long Rasta people had to fight to become part of this culture. They had to fight to become not a cultural object, because they're a cultural object now. People like to see it through tourism, they get money, they're brand Jamaica, but part of the culture is different from being a cultural object. And that is the distinction I think that we are only starting to understand, that people have to go to court to get the ability to just wear them hairstyle, even though this girl is not a Rasta, but being able to wear a hairstyle in an institution that has normally said, that has been the gatekeeper of saying what is proper. And so these are the things that we're trying to figure out now in the unfinished project called Jamaican Society.
I hear you, and I will say, in speaking to the lawyer that continued the case, is it that they did not reveal, or should they have maybe made the case? They're not Rasta, but on religion, if you had claimed religious grounds, for wearing your hair, Roger. I don't know what you know. I know your lawyers are not with you, but by law, could that have been a basis to basically say that, yeah, you breached my constitutional right?
Yeah, the religious argument makes it a little stronger because people have a right to their not just their belief, but their religious expression. So the prohibition of a particular hairstyle that is religious in nature would be even more suspicious. And so that gets us to a point, but it really only gets it is sufficient but not necessary, or not even sufficient. It's just incomplete. In that there's also a larger point of freedom, of expression, of even cultural identity, and the fact that locks are, it's coming back. Okay. I don't. It's trying to be in the cast. I think that's what it wants to be. I guess this roach, and so
The roach is still there?
yeah, man. It just wants to be in the video. It seems, but I'm not submitting to the request. And yeah, it's hard not to kill them because they're so gross. Anyway, and so and so I think that to wrap up that point, the argument is always easier religiously grounded, but across the world, many of these things actually started with protections for religion that then got expanded to other things. And so I think anybody who comes to that conclusion is spot on, that it does make it more extreme. If you look at the Prime Minister's statement today, the only attributes he says should be protected from discrimination is religion, and he mentions it, that there should be no prohibition of a student going to school on religious grounds, because that one is held up as being like a no-go zone. But it is incomplete. It's not just religion. I don't have to have a religious justification to just wear my hair the way I want to. Once it is generally reasonable, and not obstructive to the environment.
But then we have to talk about what is reasonable and what is objective to the environment. Because when I rock my fro, honey, it could be objective. I mean, it could be, what do you call it? To you may say, oh, her fro is a little bit too much to the right over here, too much to the left. I can't see in there to tell if there's any lights. I mean, at what point do we just say Afro hairdos that of any African style of the 50-something countries should be allowed? And if you allow an Indian and a white person's hair to be at a certain length, then we should be allowed the same same ability to enter, or the same what do you call it, Roger? The same
Access.
Because
Someone in the comments is saying, "Don't the damn roach." Sorry.
what is the devil?
Someone is talking about the roach.
They're also saying that they want to see you in representational politics.
Oh no, gross. No, no, I just can't. I think that it's not for me. I'm becoming even clearer now on just like what's my role. Maybe my opinion will change later, but what does that mean? That means join some party and like submit to their vision and take money from people to run a campaign. Where does the money come from? But to people who want things after you win, and do things for image and tell a lot of lies. That's I just couldn't do that. It's I would be interested in governance, but not politics. Politics is a contestation over power, to see who can win and rule. Governance is a process of service, and there's a distinction between politics and governance, even if we're not very attentive to it in life every day. And so, no, I'm not with a 10-foot pole, not in this or my next life.
Never say never, Roger. It has been years of being trying to get you. And when I say get you, it's to like get you to be on the road with us with Talk Up Youth, non-political organization, just a youth advocacy group, giving young people a voice to talk and to train young people in governance, advocacy, the Constitution, etc. And you have declined many of my offers, so I'm so thankful.
Schedule conflicts.
Put it out there. It is only because of schedule. You're here now, and I am going to go and fill up my glass of wine. I want to share something with you. This is a wine glass that my mom had before she passed away, we used to have lots of wine with this. She was a psychologist, and we used to have very insightful in conversations and moments. So I'm going to go and fill it up while you share with my viewers, and I'm going to go find my husband who's not responding to my WhatsApps while I'm in the other room to say I want him to come on live to talk about reparation. He's not responding to me. So I'm going upstairs to find him and hold him accountable because he promised me he was coming on. I would like you to share with our viewers the recent press release from the Jamaicans for Justice and what it states. If you don't mind, I'll be right back.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah,
Is that okay?
yes, that's no problem.
Okay.
So no problem. You get the wine and the husband. And so yes, and so today Jamaicans for Justice issued a press release that covers our position on the statement, having initiated this case in 2019 and then handing it over. And so there's one big point here, and that is that in the wake of this court decision, though there is no written judgment, there's a need to reform key components of our educational law and regulations to prevent this from being legally possible for other children. Our Education Act of 1965, which means it's basically almost as old as independent Jamaica is, and our education regulations of 1980, which would make it 44 years old. So it's, it's old. What those two documents do is regulate how public education in Jamaica operates. And unfortunately, they don't really include any protections for students from unjust or arbitrary rules. But additionally, yes, 1980, thank you, person in the comments. But what they also do is effectively leave a lot to schools to entirely figure out how school rules are going to operate. And so there's been many calls over the years for the education regulations to actually set some minimum standards or even enforceable protections for students for children in public education to prevent what we have is the extreme variation between schools in rules. So one school ban locked, another school doesn't ban locked, and the rest of parents or any other parents who want their children to wear locks have to hop around from school to school to see who will take their child oftentimes. And you have other rules, crazy rules regarding length of children's clothing and other things. And this is not to say that schools can't make rules. Schools have general ability to make rules. What it is to say is that those rules have to exist within a set of parameters that are reasonable, legal, and rights-based. And so one of the simple requests is for the government to adopt in law or in regulations their existing policy guidelines regarding school rules so that they can become enforceable. And you would not be able to discriminate, for example, against a child because of their attire or their grooming, or just ban an entire type of hairstyle, which many schools do. Because children also have two things here. They have a constitutional right to education, and their right to education is more important than the preferences of school administrators for what they like to see students wear. But second, students have a general protection against unreasonable and unfair regulation, just as we do from the government. And so if it's a publicly funded school particularly that we are all paying for, those rules must serve an educational purpose. They can't just be, not purposeful, but they also should be fair and based on rational reasons for their establishment. It actually is very unintelligent to say, well, rules are rules, so what you're arguing about. We're not really arguing that people should follow rules. We're arguing that rules should be sensible, so that we're only following sensible things. And so when you ask to reform laws, what you're asking are trying to reform the master rules, so that any other little rule at every little primary and infant and all-age school makes sense. It's the same reason why we try to change laws every day in Parliament. Not that we are saying that people shouldn't follow laws, that would not make sense. What we're saying is that people should only follow sensible laws, and therefore you have to make laws sensible. The same logic applies to schools and school rules. It's the same reason why we challenged something like slavery 200 years ago, because you only want sensible laws, for example, or you gave women the right to vote because you only want sensible laws. And so a challenge to a rule or a challenge to a law is an attack on rules and laws generally, as people seem to be reporting. It's it's really about having sensibilities. And then finally, a factual point. I saw something on social media, a Facebook post everybody is sharing to me, saying that the issue that was before the court was simply a matter of standing of Jamaicans for justice. That's wholly inaccurate based on my knowledge. The Jamaicans for Justice was never a named party or a claimant in the suit. The named parties were the mother and the father of the child against Kensington Primary School, the Ministry of Education, and the Attorney General's Chambers, I believe. I don't know if the AGC was kept as a third party. And so there was no determination to ever be made about if Jamaicans for Justice had standing. Attorneys from Jamaicans for Justice represented the family at the beginning and got the injunction to get her to go back to school. But this Facebook post from some person that people are taking as truth is inaccurate. And in fact, the Gleaner incorrectly reported that this was a matter of Jamaica and had to retract it. And so I hope that clarifies for those who are not clear on our role in this matter. But our interest here is way beyond the court process, which is now basically about to finish. We're interested in a reform of the system. And so for those who are interested in helping us reform the system, you can join the bandwagon. That's it.
Roger, I want to thank you so much for joining us. I went upstairs and said to my husband, I told you to come on and join me after Roger. He's like, but Roger is doing such a great job. You don't need me. That's what he just said.
You can come on.
Him said, Roger did a good job. You don't need me. I said, no, you have a different angle to him in the bed with the picnic them. But Lord, you know what? And my soup is an hour. So you have given us so much knowledge. It's 9:15. Oh my goodness. It's Emancipation Day in Jamaica. A couple final words or comments from you. What does emancipation mean to you? Celebrating August 1, going back to when was it? 1830 something? 34? What is this?
34, depending on how you measure it.
Mm-hmm.
What
Or
does it mean to
1830 Roger?
Pardon?
You said, sorry, I didn't hear you. I said 1834 and then you commented.
No, I was saying 1834 or 38, depending on when you date it, because of apprenticeship. Yeah.
Right.
And so full emancipation, probably 1838. And
So,
so Emancipation Act.
no, full emancipation or part emancipation, because the question I'm asking, are we really emancipated?
Oh, definitely not. I mean, it's emancipation, to answer your first question, emancipation to me means what the word means, like being made free. And that is a very, very deep concept, being made free. Like, if you can just think, there are 70 people on this live still, you can think for a second, and I'm just going to close my eyes and do this. In what ways are you presently, do you not feel free right now? In what ways would you express or show up in the world or go through life differently if you felt like you had total freedom? Everybody has a different answer to that. They would show up differently. They would do things differently. That doesn't even mean bondage from like some overlord. It may mean you may not have financial freedom, or you may not, be in a space where you feel free. It could be as simple as can you just get up in the room and dance? Do you feel free? It could be something simple, and it gets more complicated. Can you walk on the road as a woman late at night and feel free, or do you?
No, I can't.
Yes, it gets more complicated. Do you, as a people, can you go about your business and be free, or are you enslaved by some other race? So the freedom, the concept of freedom does not change depending on its venue. It just gets grander or more or less grand. And so emancipation for me is a concept of being made free, and it filters down from the very, very big, is your country enslaved? Are your people enslaved? To smaller levels, are people in your society unfree in some ways? Is a process of making things free and life being a free and full of liberty pursuit of whatever we want to actualize as beings here? Is that something that is available to everybody? Are there ways that we participate in not making life free for other people? And if there are ways that we participate in that, how can we emancipate? Emancipate is like full stop. Emancipate as an action. Yeah, we can add on the lovely words like Marcus Garvey's emancipate ourselves from mental slavery, because that's like a big part of it. For everybody on the chat saying, Lord God, these people are talking crap and could this boy comb his hair? We probably just need, a little emancipation of mental slavery. But then Garvey's words go further. None but ourselves can free our minds. This is the point that's really true. It doesn't really matter how much I talk, how much campaigning we do. You can't change someone's mind. Only they can. And so, yeah.
But Roger, I'm on a mission. Emancipating the minds of people means that we who feel we know in solidarity have to re-engineer and reprogram the minds of those who we bring into this world. The young people, our children. Yeah. Certain things my children say, certain things that they ask for, and I have to really sit and say, son, no, because we have to be deliberate. We have so much to do, and it's way past the soups. And I mean, if this was television, they would have shut us off. Thank God for the digital platforms where we can do what we want. Roger, I thank you for tonight. So much to do and so many more conversations to have as it relates to justice, and allowing people to see the perspective from other people's point of view. You understand? Because we are living in a community, a global community. And if you don't understand how somebody else, I understand, and this is important, Roger, and tell me if you agree or not. I mean, from your platform may be different. For me, I may understand how you think, but I don't have to agree.
Yes.
But I don't kill you for it. I don't. But then there's another argument about jungle justice, where there is no justice. Our cultural history will go back to where the tribes and the king of the tribe would mete out the justice because that was the system. So when we talk even on Jamaica about jungle justice and things that we see, we have to also understand that when you don't bring justice, the people will bring justice.
Oh,
that's another conversation.
So much. I mean, half of what we have, even in crime, is people not resorting to the state to solve their problems because they don't trust it. They don't think you'll give them what they want. And again, the baggage also of post-colonial life, the unfinished project of nation building Jamaica. And so yeah, I give thanks for the time and for the invitation. Which I did not decline this time, and so I'm happy to finally have score one. And yeah, I think this discussion is important, and it's not a professional opinion, but I believe that if we work on ourselves, that is most of the work. And so it really is more important for persons to see how they can bring justice to the world just through their lives, and then it will aggregate. And so professionally, you have to change system and law reform, and that's my job. That's how I do it in the world. But an advocacy and making noise. But I think that people oftentimes wonder, what can I do? And I really just think they can live their life better. And that's hard, it's not easy. Sometimes you have some things inside you that are not good traits as it relates to justice for other people. But as you said, you can disagree but not kill somebody for their view. That's doing the work, and I think if we just did that work, we really would not have to we wouldn't have a school administrator trying to fight out a girl from going to school. Or, we wouldn't have government lawyers going to court and fighting out a little girl trying to get some court justice. Why did our government defend
Did you just say government lawyers go to court, meaning taxpayers' money that
yes, taxpayers' dollars paid for those lawyers who went to court and who tried to fight out this one little family, and they were successful. And so that's like another question. But anyway, that's a different discussion entirely. But that's just not cool, And so anyway, our time is up, and so gratitude for the space.
I like what you said, okay. It's just not cool. And when it's not cool, we got to talk about it. We young, or should I say, we are young. We are Black. We are powerful. We are enlightened. We are aware. And we are advocates. And we must bring our voice to every platform possible, supporting each other's voice. And where one falls, we pick them up. And where one is not informed, we inform them. This is our duty. as a people. This is how we're going to build and recover from what the atrocities of enslavement and our history. Because we are kings, we are queens. Roger Malcolm, Executive
Yes,
Director
like,
of Initiatives for Justice. Thank you so much.
give thanks. All right, have a good weekend, rest of it.
I will. I'm gonna party. I'm emancipated, honey. I'm gonna party. All right. Remember to call me them. I'm gonna husband them upstairs later.
All right, bye. Bye, Empress.
Oh, blessings. I appreciate him so much. Oh my gosh, you're all still here. What an enlightening conversation. Okay, so Glammed by Kathy says, I'm free from slavery to an extent. To an extent. We gotta be totally free. Grant underscore Empire said, this gentleman is very educated. Yes, he is. That's why I brought him on. Somebody says here now, St. John underscore White says, I would sit and listen to you all day long, as I would you. It's a mutual exchange, I know. I'm reading your comment means I'm listening to you. I'm listening to all of you. I can't get through all the comments, but Ecstasy underscore Green says, we see every other contribution to society by other races in our history, books and the books in schools. Young people need to see our accomplishments in front of us so we can aspire to be great as a people. You're exactly right. So we do need more images of us. We do need more storybooks, and that's for us to create. We can't wait on anybody else to give it to us. We can't wait on the government to give it to us. It has to be our own initiative, our own advocacy goal to create these things to put in front of our children. So here's a new business opportunity. I'm laughing, Roger. Roger with the roach. What is this? Near this cat. Bailey, go back out here. But Jay has the roach, I have the cat. And my co-host on the morning show, he is afraid of lizards. It's hilarious. Anyway, so I'm gonna convince my husband to come on next weekend as we move into independence. He is upstairs chilling like a villain. So everybody, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Okay, the Aki story. Oh, I can't leave without the Aki story because I told you. So my husband was like, this morning, he said, babe, I saw the post. I said, what post? He said, the one I put on Cafe Africa. I said, tell me. It's like the story of our survival. We Aki saltfish. We Aki saltfish. You know why I hear it? Let me turn on the fan. Cool down. Hold on. The computer did, so I can't play music. Okay? But let me pull up the story. While we're here, I want to acknowledge Paul Bogle, Sam Sharp, Nanny, and Garvey in this time of emancipation. And all of our ancestors who fought for our freedom. I want to just take a moment to remember them. Please. Okay, so initially used as a fertilizer for the crops, saltfish, which is merely any white fish that was doused in salt, was often uneatable fish that slave owners did not want to use to feed the enslaved. Initially, the fertilizer was fresh fish, but after the enslaved ate the fish whilst working the fields, plantation owners added salt to deter them from eating the produce. I just feel I want to stop breathing right there and go to bed. All right. As such, initial adopters of raw saltfish were those who were hungry, a decision which often became a cause for their death due to dehydration. Those who were caught eating the saltfish were reprimanded with lashes, muzzles, and in the case of known repeat offenders, the removal of their tongue. I'm done. Read it on my Instagram page. Read the picture. Read the text under the picture. A terrible history in Jamaica, but an opportunity. Bailey! This cat. An opportunity for change. To all of you tuning in tonight, thank you so much for being amazing, being strong, being advocates, being proud, being revolutionaries for the future. May we have peace, harmony, and justice in this world for everybody. If you don't like the corner, go find your own corner. That's what I say. Create your own communities, and you don't have to accept everybody in your community. But let's allow everybody to have their own community over this, over this, over this. We have some requests to come in live. I'm going to take a couple if I can. Way over the soup tonight, but you know, it is what it is. Hi, Neil. Neil. Hi, Renil. Neil's cracking. Renil, I'm hanging up on you to answer own history, and we need to look it up. Look on the post on my Instagram page and read it and share it with everybody you know, because there's some things that happen. Joe, oh my God, this cat is going crazy. Bailey, oh my God, people, Bailey's going crazy. Bailey, why are you pulling down my green screen? Bailey, oh my God, this cat. Bailey! Oh my God, I am totally messed up. People, I'm going. Bailey's pulling down the studio. Forgive me. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I'm live and Bailey's going crazy. God bless Bailey. Okay, we're getting back to normal. This is my green cloth screen that we have. And Bailey's going crazy with it. Alright, so the cat is going between Roger and the roach and me and the cat. God bless. God bless. Yeah, God bless Bailey. Bailey has look, so this is it. So I just want to explain this to you all. This is my gallery room, where I have a green screen. Whenever I'm doing a studio broadcast, I can actually virtually change my background. Not on Instagram, but for many other platforms where I work, I have different backgrounds, and I can change it because of this. And watch it, that come back right back in there. Hello, hey Bailey. That's why I zip in a Bailey. That's my daughter. Bailey, pull it down tonight. Long story short. Anyway, yeah, we're gonna teach them what to fight for. Ecstasy_green. There's a lot we don't know yet, so we have to teach them. Oh gosh, everybody, me and the cat. Anyway, I want to run through it, but I don't want my studio tonight. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. All right, let's see how you all doing. Let's see what's going on, what's coming. Say, oh my God, my cat, the roach mashup, Roger. And the cat a mash up my life. You see them animal, yeah? The insect, yeah? It's been fun now. Where's Mama Mori? Do not tell me that Mama Mori is in this tonight. Daily, come outside. Daily? Daily? I'm afraid of you.
Hi, Empress. Good night.
My brother, how are
Lord
you?
God, Jesus Christ, Empress. Come on already. Good night.
I'm
How
good.
you
How are
doing?
you?
Do you
I
remember this
remember.
face
I
or this
remember this
person?
face. Where are you, Jeremy? Is Jeremy this?
With yes, Saint Elizabeth, Malvern, Saint Elizabeth.
Where did I meet you?
No, we didn't meet. You told me that you want to come down here to visit.
Elizabeth
I'm living right beside the
from last week, right?
week before last, not last week, week before last. Last week we had the Sunfest wherein you just came in and told us that you had to take part in it and so on for the viewers. So yes, I do appreciate of that. So how are
How
you?
are you?
Both of us asked the same question. I'm doing great.
Excellent. I'm doing too. I mean, it's been a long Saturday soup tonight. I haven't been able to check in with everybody. We had a great interview, but I wanted to have a quick, 1 second with everybody to touch it and say, hey, how are you doing? You doing okay?
Yeah. Understand? Yes, we are doing okay. I'm here with Rastawi, manager or Beaver, what you would call him, and here we are. Like. Empress,
Listen,
where's
Sila,
Rastawi
we
there?
we listen. Next week I'm gonna make it all about Uno because Uno nice up there. So I'm telling you, I'm taking a drive. When I come, make the bar ready for me.
Empress,
Yes, Rastab, how you doing?
I said, I'm great, man. Rastavi. I send the
I
a text and I don't get no response from the eye,
oh
Rasta.
goodness, I've been so caught up with the live. I haven't.
I send you an inbox text.
I'm here. It's good to
I
see.
inbox your text, man. I inbox your text towards if you come in Malvern, some things that you could gather.
Okay.
But I don't get no response. Check a text from Rastavi in case you forward a Malvern. And heal up the king, man. See?
I'm gonna review the text. Okay.
Yeah, man. Heal up the king, man.
Forgive me.
Yes.
Empress,
Yes.
Empress,
Yes.
I want that platform, that speech of which you gave tonight. I didn't hear much of it, but however, I want to big you up and big up Rajay for that. However, for this Emancipation Day, I want to tell you and your husband much thanks because Mr. Golden have been teaching a lot from ever since. He doesn't know that I've been taking in his speech and such like that. You have been taking you on your platform live most of the time and so on. So you guys, both you guys, keep it up. You are
Thank you.
great.
I'm gonna go
All
back
right? You are
again to
our
come back.
Jamaican
Him,
heroes.
him act like him now come from my life. Me don't know what I want, but me I go try tell him say, come
Mr.
on.
Golden,
But tomorrow
Mr.
I come back.
Golden. Please, Mr. Golden, come on, Mr. Golden. Where is he? Come on, let him on, come on. Is that no? We no, a Rasta man is here also, so we here. I am even though I have my hair even though I have myself this kind of way, I have myself as a Rastafarian and as
We
an
know that.
African, a true African and
We
as a
know that
Rastafarian.
long time. We know that long time. And I want to say I'm very grateful for your presence and for your support in our platforms and what we're trying to do in just simply raising awareness. Look at this cat. Look at this cat.
Yes.
Bailey, Lord have mercy, picking cat. Move, come over here. You have no respect. Man, the cat. All right.
In in society, we all have to know ourselves, and within knowing ourselves, we got to teach each other of what we have
So
learned.
true.
Because as what I've noticed, as what I've noticed, us black people not teaching each other, even though we have learned a lot. There are very few in society here which will try to do their best by showing others what they have
Right?
learned. However, what you are doing now is enlightening people to what's going on in the world. Meaning, even though you had not much to say, but whosoever you brought on your live or whatsoever, your platform, they had something to teach. Okay? And
That's,
I'm glad for that. And keep
and
it.
I'm so glad
Mr.
that you were
Gorin
able to
himself.
be. Listen, this cat. Hey, Billy. Listen, I'm gonna go deal with this cat. Listen, me and you next Saturday. You
Yeah,
coming on
yeah,
next
yeah, yeah,
Saturday?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Sure, sure. Yeah,
All
sure,
right.
sure. Next Saturday
But
I'll be same
maybe
place.
Saint Elizabeth, I plan to take a drive. Make sure you're ready for me, The crew are rolling.
Sure, 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 sure. I'll be here.
I just
I'll
so
be
love
here.
her, but this cat is going crazy right now, and like my good up
No,
green
I
is
understand.
going. Oh my God! Hey, Bailey, stop it! That's when you know the show is over. Anyway,
Come
my
on,
love her.
please. It is not big up. It is not stress to have kids. It
Oh,
is the
it is the
best.
best. My love.
Okay? Whatever they do, don't run them for it. Just teach them, guide them. That's all. All
Even
right?
though Bailey is not
Love
a kid,
you.
Bailey
Thanks.
is a cat.
Oh, sorry.
And I heard it. My
Okay. So is no. He's a Bailey is a kid
Bailey,
also.
I go crazy.
Bailey is a part of the
Jesus
family, so he's
Lord,
a
Bailey,
kid.
you forgot.
Need that attention.
Uh-uh. Bailey,
Good night, Empress.
no,
Good night. Love you. Bye.
big up my St. Elizabeth crew. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. I'm gonna hang up. All right, so the cat's going crazy, and I'm about to go shut down and ask my husband, where were you tonight? He has had so many conferences because it's emancipation, and he's a Garvey expert. So everybody's been calling for him, but he couldn't come by. Yo, gonna cry for me now. Um, wow. Emancipation. Happy Emancipation Day. Are we emancipated? Question we must ask ourselves. What does it really mean? And how do we become truly emancipated? Black hairstyles in the court. Watch the recording to hear what Roger Malcolm has to say. I want to acknowledge as well Isaac Buchanan, the lawyer who was bold enough to take this to the court. I thank him for that. I had a conversation with him today. He is exhausted with many projects. He wasn't able to come live, so we thank him for his advocacy. And he will come soon with a statement once the court has released their written judgment, which many of us have not seen, and many have been warning, wait until the written judgment has come. We have seen the statement from the Prime Minister of Jamaica, and we must read and listen and comment when we have to. Lord have mercy, the cat going crazy. Sorry. Oh, how did you reach from there to there? You get that back there. Oh, me and the cat. Emancipation. What else were we supposed to talk about tonight? Emancipation, black hairstyle, rockin' naughty, and make no apology. Ackee and Sawfish, know your history. It's interesting, like when you go to Ghana, my husband was saying in Ghana, where he was recently, people don't eat ackee. But the ackee and sawfish was a fertilizer, and they used it and salted it so that the slave or the enslaved, I should say, enslaved could not eat it. Oh, our history is terrible. But emancipated, I ate some ackee and sawfish today, and I can't stop from eating, living, growing, and advocating our rights. My people, thank you for being in the Saturday Soup. I'm Empress Golding, saying love, walk good, be blessed, love each other. Stand for your goals, stand for your principles, but respect that other people have other views as well. Happy Emancipation Day. Be black, be proud.